What is a function? A function does something, and we can do it more than once. So every time we call the function, it will do what the function does. Well, let's take a look. So we use a function keyword, function, to declare the function, and we give the function a name or an identifier, such as talk, followed by 2 round brackets and then 2 squiggly brackets. And we open up those squiggly brackets like so. We don't have to. There we go. So this is the function called talk. It has 2 round brackets, and the 2 round brackets are for receiving parameters that we'll talk about after. And then we have the body of the function. This defines a block of code. So we can put as many statements as we want in here, such as zog hello. So this function is going to zog hello, say hello to us. Here's how we call the function. We say talk. So we use the function name followed by the 2 round brackets, like so. So that calls the function talk, calls it, or it executes it, or it runs it. Different ways of saying that. Here we are defining the function talk. We're declaring the function talk. We're making the function talk. All those are the same thing. Okay, so let's see this in a console then. So we'll run this. Whoop, open up our console with F12, and there it says, hello. Woohoo! Now, if we don't call the function, let's comment that out. We don't call it, and we refresh here, refresh. No hello. The function will not run unless it's called. And we can call it more than once. That's what's nice about a function. As a matter of fact, if you're not calling it more than once, usually we don't make a function. We just put the code there. But if we need to call that code more than once, we can put it in a function, and that way we're more efficient. We make the code only once and call it any number of times. Other times, sometimes functions are used to organize our code as well. So talk and talk. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it says hello twice. We refresh here. Hello. And if we look over here, it says 2. So it's said that twice. It's a very friendly function. It might be nice if we could make it say other things. For instance, hello is great, but usually we only say that once. And we might want to say goodbye. Very short conversation. So that's what these round brackets are for. If we want to tell the function extra information, we pass in what are called parameters. Here's where we pass them in. This is us saying, I want this function to say hello. I want it to say goodbye this time. But we have to collect the parameters here, such as message. Or if we want to be shorter, we could collect it in the parameter m. It's much like a variable. We're holding whatever we pass in here. So now inside the function, we can use m. Instead of saying hello every time, we will say whatever is inside of m. So the first time we pass in hello, so m is hello. And then we zog m. The next time we pass in goodbye, and we will zog whatever, that goes in m, and we will zog m. And so it will say goodbye. Should we try it? We save that, and we refresh here. It says hello and goodbye. So you see how we've made the function more useful. Now we can tell it to say anything. Now a function, here it is being declared, but we can actually call the function before we even declare it, like that. That's because in JavaScript, functions are hoisted. They're brought up to the top of the scope. Okay, so once we declare it here, it reads through those declarations at the start, it knows about it, and therefore we can actually call it before we declare it, because this function is hoisted. Let's see, we'll say, how about There we go. So we save that up, and we refresh here. Hello, goodbye. Now, here we are passing one bit of information and collecting it in one parameter, but we can pass in two things. Like we can say, who is saying this? So let's collect a parameter called W for who or whom. Okay, and then we will zog W plus quote says, do we need a comma there? Maybe space, oops, quote plus n. So this is concatenation. So what we're doing is saying whatever we put into W, we'll put there as a string. Then we concatenate or add on says, and then we concatenate or add on whatever our message is. So right now we haven't passed in a second parameter. We've only passed in a single parameter in each case into the M. Let's see what happens when we view this in the console. It says undefined says undefined says hello, undefined says goodbye. Oh, that's not good. So we need to say who is saying these things. How about Dan Zen is saying that one? We can say, oops, not a plus, comma. We separated those by commas. Dan Zen saying that, but how about Roger is saying goodbye? Roger. Okay, so our parameters are separated by commas, and they are in order. So hello goes into M, Dan Zen goes into W, etc. Goodbye goes into M, Roger goes into W, and that's how they match up. Well, let's see what it looks like. We save that. We refresh. Roger, this nice guy, says goodbye. Dan Zen says Dan Zen says hello. Okay, cool. Now our function only had one line there. We can do more than that. We could say, using a conditional, for instance, if W, that's who, is double equal to Dan Zen, then what should we do? We could zog. Yay! Yes, yay! Oh, okay. Oh, there's a funny yay. Oh, this is an unusual crowd. There we go. Okay, so if whoever's talking is Dan Zen, then we're going to say yay afterwards. Oh, I've got a fan club. Woohoo! So we come here and a refresh, and it says, Dan Zen says, oh, and the crowd goes wild. Dan Zen says hello. Yeah, woo! And then Roger says goodbye. Silence. Poor old Roger. So there's a function with a lot of things in the body, and often functions have, 20 or 30 things, maybe 50 things. Sometimes only one thing. We're calling the function multiple times. We're passing in multiple parameters. We're collecting those parameters. Oh, that's pretty good. So now here is a second way that we can do a function. Sorry about that, a bit of a long one, isn't it? This is with the function literal, or an anonymous function. We can say function, round brackets, and then squiggly brackets. There we go. That is a function literal, so, or an anonymous function. There's no name to it. So to be able to use this, we might want to assign it to a name. We could say var, how about add, is equal to this function. And the parameters work the same way. If we wanted to add two numbers, we could go a comma b. And then in here, we would say return a plus b. So the return is new. We haven't seen that yet. If we want, we can make the function return an answer. And whenever it returns, so if I put a return in here, return, what that means is leave the function. So it would only do this line, and it would never do that because it's left the function. If we return a value, I could return w, and then it would answer the same thing that came into w, or I could return true or something like that. I can return anything I want, any object, or it could return nothing. In this case, undefined would be returned at the end afterwards, so nothing is being returned. So down below here, we are returning the answer of a plus b. So whatever we pass into A will be added to whatever we pass into B, and the answer gets returned. So we could zog that, add, and in the add, so there we are, we're going to zog or log to the console the answer, in a sense, of 10, comma 30. Ooh, what a great function. Well, how about 20? 210. So we're going to add 10 and 20, and the result gets returned from here and gets put right here. So the answer to that will be 30, and it's just like it calculates it, it figures out 10 plus 20 is 30 and returns it to right where the function was called. So that would become 30. It's the same thing. Okay, so let's see this in action. We save that, and I refresh here. 30. And indeed, since this is the same as 30, if I wanted to, I could add another 10 to that. Okay, this would be 30 plus 10 now. So we can take the function and put it right into an expression there. And I refresh here, 40. All right, neat, huh? Now, one thing about this function is that it's an anonymous function, and it doesn't get hoisted. So it's being assigned to add. So we could not add in front of this. We could not say add 1, 2, because it doesn't know what this function, it doesn't know what add is yet. It's been declared there, and we haven't assigned it anything yet. Okay, so if we save that, it will then say add is not a function. Okay, it actually knows there's a variable add, but it doesn't know that we put that into it yet. Alrighty, so why would we use a function literal? Why would we use this anonymous function? Well, sometimes we don't have to assign the function. For instance, when we pass in a function as a parameter, then the parameter is receiving it. We can access it that way. Let me show you an example. If we go down, boop, 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 here's one right here. Stage.onStage mouse down. Whenever we press the mouse down on the stage, we're going to call the function animate. Okay, so there we are saying, please call that function animate, or well, not yet. This is the function that we will call when we stage mouse down. And here is where we've declared that function. So this is the first way of declaring a function, function animate. Well, we don't have to do it that way. We could put an anonymous function in here. We could say this right here, this function object that we're making anonymously, this is the function that I want you to call. There. And we could zog, oops, zog press. Okay, so let's take a look at that. When we mouse down on the stage, and we'll see events later, when we mouse down on the stage, this is the first parameter of the on function or method. First parameter. Here is the second parameter. So we're saying, please call this function right here when we press on the stage. Okay, and this function will just zog that it's pressing. Let's try. So we save that. I refresh here. I press on the stage and it says press. Press on the stage and it says press. So that works. Every time I press on the stage, that little number right there is going up. So that's the use of an anonymous function, and we do it when we move. So here's another example. Here we are moving whatever let is, and we're moving it in the x position over this time. And when it's done moving, we're going to call this anonymous function right there. So there is a function literal. Note that there's no name on it. We put it right in there. We can also separate out. You see how we've separated that out? We've gone enter, enter, enter for our body of our function. We could do that up here too. We did that all in one line, but we can separate this out, and this is quite common. That's why I'm showing it to you. Very common in JavaScript and certainly in Zim that we do this. And we'll see a bit more when we talk about events as well. But here we're using the anonymous function that goes from here to that squiggly bracket. That's an anonymous function right inside a parameter as a parameter. And note, and when we do that, it often ends with an angle bracket, or sorry, a squiggly bracket and a round bracket. Squiggly bracket and a round bracket. This one we've got it in a couple different things. Look, there's functions within functions. Okay, and there again, that's what's happening when we see those. Now that takes some practice. It's one of the more complicated things with the things we do. There's another one. Here we are animating this squiggly bracket here. Oh, we've got no function in there, but it's the same nesting process. Okay, that's a lot, and you're welcome to listen to this again if that was a lot about functions. But we started off with a function called talk. We have a couple parameters in the round brackets. We have the body of the function, which can have as many things in it as we want. And we can use those parameters in our body. Those parameters cannot be used outside of this function. If I zog m here, even afterwards, if I zog m, it won't know what m is. It's only within the function body that you can access these parameters. We call a function by using the function name, followed by 2 round brackets, and then any parameters we enter in there. The function is hoisted, so we can call the function before we declare it or define it. And then we can also use a function literal, which doesn't have a name. It's an anonymous function. And we can receive parameters in the same way. Functions can return values, and therefore we can insert that function right into a statement because it will figure out what this is returning and then use that to add 10 to it, for instance. Zog itself is a function. Zog is a function, and this is what we're passing in to the zog. That's a single parameter that we're passing in to the zog. This expression evaluates to something, 40, I think, and that's what we pass into zog, and zog does something. And look at how many times we're zogging. We're zogging all over the place. Functions are very handy. Here's a function that centers something. Now we're going to see that functions, when they're stored on objects or in a class, functions are called methods. So functions become even more important later when we deal with object-oriented programming as methods. Fantastic. Woohoo! In JavaScript, one last thought. Just remember, JavaScript, a function is an object. That's not how it is in all languages, but in JavaScript, a function is an object. Therefore, we can assign it. So there we are taking that function object and assigning it to add. If it's an object, we can pass it in as a parameter, etc. All right. Well done, you guys. Here at zimjs.com, I'm inventor Dan Zen. Have a great day.